welcome to the RMIT Law Students Society and College of Law Time Management Workshop. My name is Clarice and I'll be facilitating the event today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. RMIT University and the Law Students Society acknowledges the people of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nation. On those unceded land, we conduct the business of the university. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to the host, Graeme.
Hi, everybody. My name's Graeme Haas from the College of Law up in Brisbane. And my task today is to, I know your time is precious, so what I really want to do is give you some help as to how to get through your workload and be able to manage your workload on a daily basis, particularly with exams coming up. I know how stressed you must be. But what I really want to do is not just talk about time management, but talk about how you can enjoy your day a little bit more, how you can enjoy your studies and perhaps not feel the weight of it all and not have the worries and the anxieties that many of us do otherwise. So thanks very much for logging in. As I say, your time's precious, and I'm confident that when you leave here today, you'll be a lot smarter about some of the tools that you can use to deal with your workload, as I say, at university and in practice later on. As we go through, if you have any questions or comments, please use the chat box. Otherwise, it's just me talking to the screen. So I'd love to hear from any of you as to any questions you might have or queries you might have. If I don't see those as I'm going through initially, we'll certainly deal with those before we leave today, but don't hesitate to ask questions as I go through. With that in mind, I'd like to pose a scenario to you or a case study to you that I want you thinking about. So hopefully you've got a pen and paper handy. This next bit's important, so we want you to write something down. And what I want you to do is imagine this scenario. Okay, imagine that you're a chef at a Vietnamese cafe. All right, you need to get into work, and you know that you've got people coming for lunch. All right, you've got 15 people coming for lunch, and they're all going to order pho noodles. You get into work in the morning. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. Kitchen's a mess from last night. The pantry's empty, the cupboards are empty, the fridge is empty. You need to do the shopping. Okay. Meanwhile, you've got notifications going off on your phone because when you were having breakfast this morning, you took a photo of your bacon and eggs and you posted that on Instagram for all of your friends to see. Okay, so I want you to think about what you do in that situation. How would you approach it? You've got no one else who's going to help you. Head chef, they've gone off to play golf. They won't be back. There's no one you can ring. No one will help you. It's all on you. So what would you do in that situation? Write down how you might get a start, honestly, how you might deal with that situation. Okay, you get into work, 9 o'clock, lunchtime, people are coming in. They're going to order their lunches. Meanwhile, the place is empty. Okay, the cupboards are empty, the fridge is empty. You got notifications going off on your phone. So what I'd love you to do is write down what you might do in that situation and how you might handle that situation. And while you're doing that, I also want you to have a think about how you feel about that case study. Okay, is it a positive thing? Are you looking forward to it with relish and it's a challenge, or is it, oh my God, this is something I have to deal with. This is something that causes me dread and anxiety. So be honest with yourself about how you might feel in that situation. Okay. So write down what you do. What's the first thing you might do? Okay. So we are going to come back to that. Okay. And I'm going to talk to you about, I use that little case study to inform the rest of the workshop that we're running today and make some really important points. What I'd like to do before we come back to that is talk to you a little bit about how I get through my workload, or how I have traditionally got through my workload through university and also for most of my working life as well. So I'd like to talk with you for a couple of minutes about that. And then we're going to get a start on what we can do to manage our days, manage our workloads, and feel a whole lot better about our working lives and less anxious and less worried, ideally. So if you're anything like me, you probably spend your days just holding it together. We sort of go from one spot fire to the next. Then maybe once or twice a year, we have this moment, a remarkable moment where we feel like we're actually on top of our work, okay? And then even more rarely than that, I might look back and think, well, I did okay with that job. That wasn't bad. The rest of the time, there's a lot of anxiety and fear. I'm fully aware of the things I haven't done and the things I have done, but I should have done better. Now, time management is all about emotion, and I want to talk to you about that today. Okay. So my time management is primarily motivated by fear, and they say that's the case with most lawyers, and I suspect most law students as well. If there's no deadline, we don't get it done. Okay. We all tend to do this as high achievers, as perfectionists. It's not just me, it'll be most of you on this call as well. Motivated by fear. What are those fears? Fears of getting found out. Very, very common to professionals, this notion of imposter syndrome. One day, everyone's going to find out that I'm just bluffing my way through here. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just winging it, a bit of a fraud. Okay, so we have this insecurity that feeds away at us. It's very common amongst professionals. I'm just waiting for that day to come when everyone finds out I've just been bluffing my way through. So that's one of the fears. Fear of not being good enough, fear of failing, fear of letting people down, fear of getting sued, fear of getting reported to a regulator, fear of losing my job. That insecurity can drive us, and we go that extra mile to somehow make up for it. We work harder. We take on more work than we can handle. We set unreasonable expectations for ourselves, and we set unrealistic goals. We beat ourselves up when we don't meet those expectations. And when we do, well, we should have aimed higher. And we're going to have to keep doing this in the future as well. So we pay no real respects to our limits or our design specifications, no respect to what we need to do to look after ourselves. It's gotten us this far, makes us good at what we do, but only to an extent, and it comes at a price. So that can be at the cost of our health and well-being and our ability to perform, our efficiency and our productivity at work. We can become very inefficient, and it can affect our relationships around us with the people that matter. So if many of us are largely motivated by fear, and we have this underlying sense that we're imposters and we're going to be found out, but we'd rather enjoy our days, what can we do about it? Imagine not carrying around all of that anxiety. So for lawyers, time famine is their number one complaint. It relates back to not being able to control your time or your workload. About half the profession will report that their work schedules didn't allow them enough time for families or for themselves. Many leave practice as a result. The dropout rates are phenomenal. Anywhere between 50 and 70% of lawyers will have left the profession after 5 years. And top of the list of their complaints is being time poor, not having enough time to do anything. So it's a huge issue for us. That's what we're going to be dealing with head on today. It's also poor time management can also lead to malpractice claims as well and errors in the workplace. But as lawyers, we got this strongly held belief that if we're getting behind, we just need to catch up. We need to work faster, do more things at once, work into the night, skip the exercise, eat lunch at our desks. Once again, miss dinner with the family. Doesn't work for very well for most lawyers. It's resulted in a lot of the burnout and dissatisfaction that we see in practice today. We can catch up in the short run, but in the long run, we're never caught up. Just repeated late nights and more frustration. So we know this primary emotion of time management is fear. Okay. The suggestion is we don't manage time. Time is time. We manage ourselves. Okay. And what we do with that time. So time management is largely about emotion, and that primary emotion is fear. So what would you do? Okay. See if I can do something wild and share a PowerPoint here. Here we go. So what would you do if you wanted to feel a bit more in control of your day, if you wanted to be less stressed, and if you wanted to enjoy your work more? Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Here's our plan. We want to understand the emotion of time management. We want to provide you with some simple strategies, okay, to manage your time more effectively. And I'm going to talk through what I think are the 3 steps to time management. Okay. And as I say, please, as I go through, if you've got any comments or questions, don't hesitate. They'll jump out at me at some point. Okay. So how do we traditionally learn to time manage? Well, many of us don't learn. It's just something you deal with whatever the biggest spot fire is, whatever the loudest ticking bomb is, what's coming up, what's causing you the most fear. And that can sometimes drive us. Okay. And if there is no fear and there is no deadline, guess what? We procrastinate, we put it off, we do it later, we don't have to worry about it. And that can cause a lot of anxieties later on as well. Here's what I think the first step is to time management, and that is to take control of the situation. Sometimes we get conditioned as lawyers to being very defensive, not accepting responsibility, but blaming other people wherever possible, it sometimes becomes our conditioning. Okay. In this situation, we need to accept responsibility and take control. For instance, many of you would have said, use the phrase, I certainly have, I don't have time for that, or I don't have time for something. All right. What are we saying when we're saying I don't have time? We've all got the same amount of time in a day. What you're really saying is this. And next time you go to say, I don't have time to do something, I want you to reframe it as this and think of it in this context. It's not a priority for me. You get to choose your priorities. Okay. We all get to choose our priorities throughout the day to a certain degree, but you choose what you do with your time. Okay. So next time, don't be a victim of time. All right. I haven't been afforded enough time in my day. We all get the same amount of time, but you choose your priorities. Okay. One of the leading causes for lawyers battling anxiety and depression is this notion of low decision latitude, not feeling like I have much say or control over things. I do it, I keep the clients happy, I keep the boss happy, I'm trying to keep mum and dad happy with my career choices, I'm trying to keep the regulator and the Supreme Court happy. All right. So what we need to do is look for opportunities in practice to take more control. Okay. And one of the ways to do that is to manage your time on a daily basis, manage your workload on a daily basis. That step is critical. Actually sitting down and taking some control over your workload is a critical step that you need to take. And that in itself will make you feel a whole lot happier. It's that perception of control over your day, which is critical. You can sit back and go, well, I have no control. I'm doing everything for everybody else, but that's not quite true. You get to choose how you plan your day and what you're going to do throughout your day, as you are informed by the people that you're working for, of course. But we want you to take control over that. So, okay, we can be very reactive as lawyers. We're renowned for being a reactive profession. Reactive means other people's priorities and goals, they take center stage over our own. We deal with the phone calls when they come in. We drop everything and deal with the phone calls. We drop everything and deal with the emails. We are available sometimes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All right. And once again, that's an example of somebody else having all the control and all of the power. So what we want to do is take a more proactive approach to the practice of law. Take the time every day, put some time aside to manage your workload, initiate client communications, have conversations with supervisors and people that you work with, and inform their expectations as to when you might be able to get that work done. Letting clients know when you're not going to be able to get things done by a certain date and having those conversations with them. So we want to be more proactive in our approach to our working lives. So that's step one. Now, the second step to all of this is to know yourself. We're all individuals, okay? So I'm not going to be too prescriptive about how you should manage your day. You should definitely try different things and go with what works for you. I've got a few key things that I think we should do, but we need to be mindful of our own tendencies as people, okay? Our own, how we carry ourselves throughout the day. See if you identify with any of these personality types, okay? So perfectionists will be many of you. We're renowned as being perfectionists and pessimists as lawyers. Unreasonable expectations, rarely get there, always beating ourselves up. And this is the key, our self-esteem and our sense of self-worth is tied into these unreasonable expectations. The perfectionist thinks that unless I'm achieving perfection, okay, then I'm a failure as a human being. My sense of self-worth and my value as a human being comes from achieving these unreasonable goals. We start to think that we are what we do, not who we are as human beings. So the perfectionists can struggle in the workplace. They'll spend 4 hours getting a job to 80%, and then they'll spend 6 hours getting it to 100%. And that frustrates our bosses because we can become very inefficient. So what the perfectionist needs to do is identify good enough in any situation. When is the job good enough? Okay, when have I done enough work on it? Do I really need to keep working on it? So identify good enough in any situation. Other areas of your life too, outside of work, your exercise, your hobbies, are you perfectionists there? Do you always have to be perfect? Or are they areas of your life where you need to do a better job of identifying good enough? Around the house and domestic stuff, can you identify when the house is clean enough as opposed to perfect? Okay, it's not a lot of fun living with a perfectionist, as some of you might have experienced. What else do we need to do as perfectionists? Remind yourself often that you are who you are as a human being, not what you do. And the analogy I draw is this one. If I die and I've got a bunch of people standing around feeling sorry, going, gee, I miss Graeme. They're not going to be saying, gee, I miss Graeme. He was so good at drafting statements of claim and filling out his timesheet. And you remember that mark he got for year 3 of his corporations law? That was incredible. God, I wish he was here. Nobody cares about that stuff. The people who really care about us as human beings really care about who we are as people and your qualities as a human being, your capacity for kindness and patience and tolerance, your ability to listen, your sense of humor, whatever it is that makes you who you are, okay? Remind yourself often, I am who I am as a human being, not what I do in my studies, not what I do in the workplace. Give yourself that break. The perfectionist will also procrastinate. Talk about procrastination shortly, but for the perfectionist, myself at least, I don't like to start a job because whatever I do, it's not going to be good enough. I'm not going to end up addressing the United Nations, and there won't be a statue of me erected in my honor, because that's what you're hoping for as a perfectionist, world-changing stuff every time, okay? Unrealistic expectations. So a perfectionist won't want to start a job because there's no payoff for them. Sometimes that's a reason for procrastinating. So what you need to do is set more reasonable expectations, aim for excellentism, okay? Give up on perfection, aim for excellent, aim for good enough, and just make a start. We'll talk about that shortly. The all or nothing people, okay? Unless you can do it, sit down and do the job at once in one sitting, then you won't get a start at all. So often they procrastinate and put things off because they don't have the motivation or they don't have the time to do it all at once. So with the big tasks, break them up into smaller pieces of work that you can work on across days or across weeks, okay, as opposed to just being one gigantic task, which might seem insurmountable. The busy bees, always busy, always doing something, no particular order and no particular priority. So what the busy bee needs to do is come up with a plan for the day and a proper structure and learn how to prioritize things. What order should I actually be doing these things in? Same with the all or nothing people. Come up with a plan for the day, break things up into smaller tasks and start working away at whatever the task is. Same with the perfectionist. Although there's apparently no payoff because whatever I do is not going to be good enough, we'll just start timetabling that job so you work at it piece by piece, and it avoids the procrastination issues that we'll touch on very shortly. The yes people can't say no. Lovely people. Everyone likes the yes people. Highly sociable, okay? But they struggle to say no to anything, and they end up taking on, some of you relate to this, and they'll end up taking on more work than they can, and that will crush them at some point. So the perfectionist learns over time that they have to say no, because saying yes to something inherently means saying no to something else. And it just means you end up giving your control to other people if you're always saying yes to them. So the yes people need to learn to say no and figure out what their priorities are and organize their days according to what works for them and what is good for them. Deadline deniers, that some of you, this will be some of you, there's a date coming up for an exam or an assignment. That feels yucky when you think of it. It feels uncomfortable. So I'm not going to think about it anymore because that's yuck. So I'm going to put that to the back of my mind. And then guess what? It's 2 days out, 3 days out, 1 week out, and the fear becomes too great. So the deadline deniers also need to come up with a plan for the day and start working away at whatever that task is. Here's how procrastination works, okay? Have you got time to procrastinate about something? And this is something I battled for most of my life. So I'd love you guys to figure it out nice and early. You'll be happier for it. If there's time to procrastinate, hell yes. Okay, go with it, because doing the work might be interesting. It mightn't be easy. We tend to go with what's easy, what's interesting. Okay, so we put that off because that's yucky. Then guess what? We find whatever's interesting or easy. We wait for enough fear to come along. Okay, and then that fear will motivate us, all right, to actually get a start on the task. But you know what happens when that fear comes along? We start beating ourselves up. Here I go again. Haven't allowed myself enough time. I've left it to the last moment. I'm going to put in a crappy job because I haven't put in the time or resources that I need to. That tends to be how procrastination works. You're just waiting for that fear to be big enough to motivate you to get a start. Then the self-loathing kicks in. All right, so what do we need to do about it? be aware of it. Be aware of your reasons for procrastinating. If you procrastinate, why do you do it? Do you do it because you want to go with something that's easy or interesting? Do you do it because you're a perfectionist and whatever you do won't be good enough? Do you do it because you're a deadline denier? Maybe some people just love the thrill of that deadline, just the excitement of knowing it's coming up. Some people like the adrenaline rush or the cortisol rush that they get from it. So be honest with yourself if you procrastinate, and try and figure out the reasons behind it. Set more reasonable expectations. As I say, you don't have to end up at the United Nations talking to them about whatever it is you have to do. Okay, set more reasonable expectations and aim for good enough. Just get a start anywhere. Find a beginning, break it up into little pieces and get a start. Don't expect inspiration to motivate you to get a start on things. Meet it halfway. Okay. And break the job up into little bits, and that'll help you make some progress and avoid the fear that's going to come down the track if you just procrastinate and put everything off. We're going to get back to the cafe very shortly, I promise. The other thing that runs interference with our time management is distractions. Okay, whether you're working from home, whether you're in the office, we've got all these things that potentially distract us. So what, Graeme? Distractions are like little holidays for the brain. Well, what you need to be mindful of is this. If you're working on a task, okay, and you have been working on it for a while and you're in that zone, all right, something distracts you, phone call, email, visitor to your office, jar of biscuits, something on the internet that's more interesting. It's going to take you about 20 minutes to get your head back to where it was. Once you're distracted, it takes 20 minutes to get your head back to that headspace that it was in. So those distractions have a huge impact on our ability to get the job done and get it done well. So I want you to think about some of the things that might distract you. What are the most common distractions for you all on a daily basis? Don't be afraid to share that in the chat box either. So in this case, it might be the phone. It might be the notifications because your Instagram notifications are going off, or your social media notifications are going off, and you're sitting in the office or at home and you're lonely and you want to connect with other people. So of course you're looking at that. That's how our brains are built, to build those connections. It might be the telephone, okay? It might be friends calling or clients ringing you up in the middle of something. It might be emails coming through. You're in the middle of a job, you're working on something, email comes through. It might be you're just bored doing whatever you're doing, so you need to surf the net and find out what the scores are in the basketball or what's happening with Amber and Johnny. You go with what's interesting, okay? So what can we do about all of these distractions? Let's go back. So what can you do? Telephone calls, this is probably more relevant to when you start work, but when you leave a message for somebody, let them know the hours of the day you want them to call you back. Call me back after 3, okay? When you call somebody on the phone, have an agenda. You don't necessarily have to tell them you have an agenda, but have a list of things you want to talk about, just so you don't have a conversation that's meandering and wasting too much time. And when it's time to end that conversation, a common trick that people will use, you can't say, I don't want to talk to you anymore, I have to go, or I'm too busy for this, I have to go. That's just blunt and rude. What we do say is something along the lines of, I know you must be very busy, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thanks for your time today. So that's it. Try to end those phone calls when they need to be ended, because they can run interference. Well, if you have an office, get your admin person to leave your messages outside of that office, so that's not constantly distracting you as you're trying to work on something. You might have a list of VIPs whose phone calls can come through or whose messages can come through, but everyone else can wait till a particular time. Same with your emails. If you keep checking your emails as they come through, that's a distraction. So either turn off your notifications on your social media and on your emails. Perhaps have a specific time, check your emails once an hour or whatever it might be, but don't constantly be checking your emails, because that's a distraction as well. The office talker, somebody who comes and stands in the doorway of your office, blocks your escape and wants to yap mindlessly about, not mindlessly, that was a bit cruel, endlessly perhaps, about what happened on their weekend or what they cooked for dinner last night. That's well and good, and it's nice to have those social connections, we need it, but it's also running interference with your ability to do your work. Let's face it, we're all that person who stands in someone's door from time to time and distracts people. So just be mindful of it, of when you're distracting other people. And when someone distracts you, then you can have those throwaway lines like, my apologies, I'm just in the middle of something. Can I come and see you in half an hour? Or can I come and see you in an hour? Whatever it might be, have that signal. It's completely okay, because it's your workload and your stress levels that are going to suffer if you don't do that. Other distractions might be, for some of you, food, the biscuit jar, lollies, having a snack, making a cup of tea. That's okay, but use it as a reward. So for those of you who struggle with discipline to sit there and get the job done, then you can say, all right, put in half an hour here and I go and make myself my cup of tea, or go and get a biscuit in an hour, or whatever it might be. Those little rewards actually work if you can just stay on something and focus on your job. All right. Where to next? What do we know about law students? So let's talk about you guys specifically and some of the time management tendencies that law students have. You've got a good work ethic, believe it or not, and you also like organisation and structure. You want things to be organised. Now, this is a good starting point, but although you probably beat yourselves up as law students, thinking other people work harder than me, I could be doing better. No, you really are top of the tree when it comes to work ethic. Challenges, lack of routine. I certainly know as a student, my study hours were from whenever I woke up in the morning to whenever I went to bed at night. And if I wasn't studying, I was feeling guilty in the meantime. Sometimes, depending on the courses you're doing, I know for law, for each subject, we had a 2-hour lecture and a 1-hour seminar per week. So there wasn't much time in at university. Okay. Law students tend to be very future oriented. That's because you've got these heavily weighted exams quite often at the end of a semester. All right. So they talk about people having something called a temporal time perspective. To what extent are you mindful of the present? To what extent are you mindful of the future? To what extent are you mindful of the past? Some of us dwell in the past, some of us dwell in the future, some of us, you want a real balance of those things. If you're too caught up in the future, that tends to be aligned with anxiety. And if you're too caught up in the past, that tends to be aligned with depression. So we need to be more orientated on what's happening today in the here and now. We do limited planning in advance, so they reckon law students might be good for the next 3 weeks, but they probably haven't done much planning beyond that. Let's talk about that very shortly. What can we do? The suggestion is you should treat your study as a 9-to-5 job. Come up with a plan each day for 9 to 5, okay? That gives you 8 hours to get the job done in, as opposed to potentially 12 hours or 15 hours. So why don't we want to give ourselves 12 or 15 hours? Because then you procrastinate and you become inefficient. When there's a deadline and you've got those boundaries within which you have to do something, you're more likely to get the job done. For instance, when you take on a job and you're going away on holidays, that last day before holidays, you get an incredible amount of work done because there's a real deadline there. So treat your study as a 9-to-5 job and come up with a plan for the day. If you only give yourself, say, an hour to do the job, then you're not going to be able to waste 3 hours doing it. And that's what we tend to do. I've got all day to do this. I've got until 11 o'clock at night to do this. So I'll wander off, I'll watch Netflix for 5 hours, whatever it might be. So that's what we want to do. Start timetabling your work for the day. Come up with a plan for the week. What do you want to achieve? And start setting goals. We'll talk about that in the next step. Okay, setting goals and then timetabling as a result. So that's the big one. Treat it as a 9-to-5 job. Come up with a plan for the day. Then you've got the night to yourself at least, and you're more likely to work more efficiently. That's talking about the distractions. Let's jump out of place. We're getting on to step 3. Okay. Anthony Bourdain, some of you may know of. That's his book that he wrote, Kitchen Confidential. Okay, so we're going back to the cafe, aren't we? Empty kitchen, customers coming in. What are we going to do in that situation? Well, many of you would have said, let's see if you've got, if you want to put that in the chat box, write in what you might do to start the day. Let's see some comments from some of you. How would you start the day if you're a chef in that cafe? And you had all of this ahead of you. What might the first few things be that you do? Make a list. Good job. We've got an advanced student there. Well done. Order all the missing ingredients. Okay. Have the deliveries done. Cleaning the kitchen. All right. Turn off the phone. That's a good start. Well, here's what our friend Mr. Bourdain suggests. Okay. Yeah, that's one of the key things we need to do. And he came up with this notion of the mise en place. Everything in its right place, a French phrase meaning everything in the right place. So his suggestion in that situation would be you spend 10 to 15 minutes coming up with a plan for your day, not necessarily a shopping list, but a list of things you need to do, and come up with a timetable and a plan. That's what we need to do every day that we have study or when we're working. We need to come up with a plan, right? That in itself is going to make us feel a whole lot better about our workload and what we have in front of us. All right. So how are we going to make a plan? What you need to do is figure out, imagine, okay, it's 20 years time. We're looking 20 years into the future and you are successful. Okay. Whatever you decide success means to you, you've achieved it, you've accomplished it. So have a think about what that means to you. What does success mean to you? All right. And it's got to be what success means to you on your terms, not what success means to your parents or to your uncle or to your siblings or your best friends. You have to decide what success means on your terms. Otherwise, you're just trying to achieve somebody else's goals. We tend to get our ideas of success from our parents. Guys get it from their paternal parents. Females get it from their maternal parents. But it needs to come from yourself. So you decide, what does success to me mean to me in 20 years? Where do I want to be? Where do I want to be in 10 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, 1 week? These are all the goals we actually need to sit down and start considering. Otherwise, we're just sailing blind. And it's not just professional, it's personal stuff as well. Your health, your relationships, where do you want to be? And time management isn't just about work. It's about doing what you need to do and planning your day so you can look back on your day and say, I achieved and I accomplished the things that I wanted to. I achieved and I accomplished the things that were good for me. So on a daily basis, we need to come up with a plan. Be precise about what it is you want to do. If I just say study corporate law, okay, well, I don't know at the end of the day whether I've done that effectively or whether I've achieved anything. So for instance, it might be study unit 2 or write notes for unit 3 or whatever it is. So be precise about what it is you need to do. And then guess what? At the end of the day, you get to put a little tick next to it or put a line through it. And that's a very satisfying feeling. Be precise. Secondly, estimate the time required. Okay, how long will this task take? You're better off poorly estimating time than not estimating time at all, because as I was saying previously, that gives you some boundaries and some parameters so you can't just procrastinate or work inefficiently. Be precise about what you need to do, estimate time, okay, and then prioritize. Come up with an order. Where do I need to start? Okay, what should come first? What order do I need to do these things in? Excuse me. Now, some of you might struggle with your priorities. You don't know when you start in a workplace what order you should do things in. What you should be doing is talking with your supervisor, and that supervisor should have a conversation with you. Okay, it shouldn't be your responsibility to figure out the order of things, but let the people that you're working for know. Have a conversation with your supervisor, and they can give you direction. Okay, so what's our first step? What do we say? We want to accept responsibility. Okay, don't be a victim of time. All right, take control of your day. Secondly, know yourself. What are my own personal tendencies? When I procrastinate, why do I do that? All right, what are my distractions? What are the things that are distracting me? And now thirdly, we need to come up with that plan. What's going to work for me professionally and personally? Where do I want to be in 20, 10, 5, 1 year's time? Okay, 6 months. Come up with plans. And guess what? We come up with our plan for the day. We sit there in the morning or in the afternoon before we go home. We've got this beautiful timetable for the day and we know what we're going to do. Well, guess what? More often than not, someone's going to come in and bomb that plan. Something might need to be suddenly prioritized. Somebody might have an urgent job on. Okay, and your plan goes out the window. And guess how we respond to that? We freak out and we get anxious, and all of a sudden we've lost that control. I had this beautifully planned. I knew what I was going to do. I was in control. Now you've come away and you've taken that control away from me, and now I'm rattled. Okay, that tends to be how we respond to it. So there's only really one thing to do in that situation. Maybe two things. Firstly, be aware of your reaction and be honest with yourself about how you're reacting to it. I'm freaking out here. I'm getting anxious here. I'm getting stressed. Stress is basically when you feel like you don't have the resources to cope with whatever is in front of you. If you feel like you can get the job done, we're not stressed. It's just when we feel like all of a sudden I'm not going to be able to cope with this situation. That's stress. So be honest with yourself about how you're reacting to it. Now, secondly, the critical part is you need to adapt your plan and change your timetable, okay? And change your plan. And that act of taking control and amending whatever your plan for the day was, that will help you feel a whole lot better about the situation because, again, you've taken control over it. And I'll get to you. I've got more comments waiting for me in the chat box too, and I'll get to those very shortly. Green frog, okay. Why do I got a green frog? If we're doing this face to face, I'd give you green frog lollies now, but unfortunately we can't do that. So what am I saying? Eat the frog. And it's a Mark Twain quote. I'll let you read that. Okay, so I'm not suggesting you visit your local estuary of a morning and start whacking frogs and taking them home for breakfast and having them with your eggs. What I am suggesting is this: whatever your most difficult task is for the day, okay, your most difficult study, your most difficult work, whatever it is, you want to do it first thing in the morning. Because I sort of call them the golden hours. You're less fatigued first thing in the day. Okay. As the day goes on, that's another reason for distraction is fatigue. And as the day goes on, we get more and more fatigued. That's why we have to look after ourselves physically, look after your physical health, look after your mental health. Okay. And then hopefully you're less likely to be fatigued as the day goes on. But first thing in the morning, that's when you're most likely to be alert and switched on. So whatever your most difficult task is, do that first thing in the morning. Okay, that's one suggestion. Also, okay, so those I call them the loser files or the loser tasks that you never give any attention to. All right, I'll do that another day. I'll put that to the end, put that to the back. I suggest that you have a day every now and then where you give those loser files some attention. Okay, some of you might know what that photo is a reference to. Stephen Bradbury, Olympic gold medalist for Australia, coming last in the race. Everyone falls over in front of him and he shoots through and wins the gold medal. Some people get upset and some giving him a hard time because that was his plan the whole way along. What I'm saying is those files that are coming last on a regular basis, they need a bit of attention from time to time, or the tasks that you need to do. Otherwise, you just end up stressing about them. Make time for yourself. What do I want to do? It shouldn't all just be work, work, work. You've got to have some fun in your day. Keep yourself physically healthy, for instance, whether it's going for a walk or doing a bit of exercise or catching up with your friends or cooking a nice meal or watching a movie or whatever it is. You need to timetable time for yourself as well. All right. That's a critical part of all of this. Key things. Let's have a look at what a timetable might look like, actually. When we come up with our plan for the day. I'll quickly just scroll through here, bear with me. Okay, so this is what our plan for the day might look like. All right, we come up with a to-do list. All right, what's my task? Being precise about it. How long is that task likely to take? Better to poorly estimate time than to not estimate at all. And then we start coming up with a timetable. So it might look something like this for our cafe scenario. Okay. All right, coming up with your plan, then you might do your cleaning, just estimating time. The substance of it doesn't really matter. And then you come up with, once you've figured out what you need to do and how long those tasks are likely to take and what their priorities should be, then you can come up with a plan for the day and timetable your day. So some of the quick takeaways from today. I want you to take control and accept responsibility. Remember, that's the first step. Stop being a victim of time. If you don't say I don't have time for something, you say it's not a priority for me. Know yourself. What are my own tendencies? Do I procrastinate? What distracts me? Take 10 minutes a day to make a list. I mean, first thing in the day is when you're most alert. You can come up with your plan for the day then, but even better, do it before the day before, okay, or when you finish the day before. That way you're more likely to sleep well at night because you're not going to be worried. You've taken control of the next day. You've got a plan for it, and then you can hit the ground running first thing in the morning in the golden hours, and you can eat your frog then and do the difficult tasks. But if you want to time manage first thing in the morning, that's completely okay as well. Adjust your plan. As I say, our plan's going to be bombed by someone or other. That's inevitable. Be aware of how you react to it. Take control of the situation. Adjust your plan accordingly. So what I'd love you all to think about now is what you might do differently. What are your takeaways from today? How can you perhaps manage your days better? Did you learn anything from today that might be useful for you or that you could do differently? One other key thing I want to talk about is in relation to the emotion of it all, is that time management actually starts, I reckon time management starts in the bedroom. All right. I'm not being weird about this. What I'm saying is when you wake up first thing in the morning, there'll be a certain emotion. You might be dreading the day ahead of you. You might be feeling, for those with depression, you might just be feeling flat and incapacitated. But for a lot of us, it's fear and anxiety, isn't it? That's when you wake up in the morning and you've got an exam, or you've got an assessment, or you've got something to deal with, you've got to go to court, you've got a client conference. So what I want you to do is next time you wake up in the morning, and be honest with yourself about how you're feeling about the day ahead of you. What we want to do, okay, if you see it as a threat, what we often do is whatever scares us, this thing that's causing us anxiety, all right, we see that as a threat and our body reacts to it very defensively. And we have the cortisol and the adrenaline pumping around, and we're not exactly operating at our best because we're carrying all of this stress and all of this anxiety. What I want you to do, and something that's really helped me out a lot, is you reframe your day as a challenge or an opportunity. Okay, so you've got to get up in the morning and sit this exam, 100% exam. My Lord, don't know if I'm going to get through it all. Well, what you really need to do is say, well, actually, this is an opportunity for me to take a further step in my studies and get closer to graduation. Yeah, it's a challenge for me, but at the end of the day, I go home, all my fingers will be there, all my toes will be there, and I'll be in one piece. Okay, we tend to catastrophize as well as perfectionists. So just be honest with yourself in the morning and start reframing things that scare you or that make you anxious. Reframe them as challenges and opportunities. Start thinking about them in positive terms. How is it going to help you accomplish your goals in the long term? You might be doing something you've never done before. Well, good. Okay. Set reasonable expectations for yourself. You're not going to be perfect at it first time. Okay. Give yourself a break, permission to be a human being, but also remind yourself, well, I'm developing a skill. I've never done this before. I've never got up in a courtroom before. This is an opportunity for me to develop a skill here. And when I walk out of the courtroom, I'm going to be feeling a whole lot better and a feeling of elation just because I've survived that stressful thing. Okay. You don't, what's the old saying? You don't get to meet the princess until you kill the dragon. The things that really scare us and terrify us can have an incredible payoff at the end. Okay. So just remind yourself, those things that do terrify you and cause you anxiety, they're opportunities and challenges. And it might seem artificial and it might not work for the first half dozen times or 10 times, but guess what? You set up all these neural pathways and it comes easily now. It comes as almost like instinctively. You wake up in the morning, something starts to scare you, but you've already got this way of thinking connected where you go, well, this is actually going to help me down the track. This will help me achieve things. Yes, it's a challenge. And instead of all the adrenaline and cortisol and fear pumping around your body, you see it as a challenge. And you might have things in your life outside of work, that hobbies that you love doing, a sport or playing a musical instrument or making some art or doing some crafts. Well, you might have a situation with those things where you think, I may or may not be able to do this successfully. I may or may not win or lose. I may or may not be able to paint the picture, but it's not going to cause you, it's not something you fear or dread. Okay. It's a challenge. It's an opportunity. And that's the way we should be approaching our working lives on a daily basis. So hopefully that's been useful for you. I'm going to start looking through some of these, the chat box, and see what questions you have for me and start working through those. If you have any more questions or comments, please don't hesitate to ask. If you're a night owl and don't function in the morning, well, obviously you need to find the time of day when you're at your best, when you're most likely to be able to get that work done. And if it's in the evening, it's in the evening, but chances are you'll be taking a job at some point, and that's going to start at 9 o'clock of the morning, if not earlier. So you may need to condition yourself to operating in the morning at some point, but I can certainly relate to the night owl. Yeah, we'll figure out when the best time for you to eat the frog might be. It might be 2 o'clock of an afternoon. I'm not sure. Quickly scrolling through. Okay. Allocating time off in our schedules to manage time more effectively in the long run. Well, I think that's really the point, isn't it? Is just finding that time every day to come up with a plan for the day, but you also need to be setting goals for the future as well. Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years? You might be light on with specifics, but it might be how you live your life, having a balance of work and play, or it might be a certain career progression that you're hoping for there. Okay. Tips to have a good sleeping schedule. Okay. So as lawyers, we have 3 times the rate of alcoholism as the rest of the population. So alcohol is a bad crutch to lean on. Excuse me. it interferes with your sleep, it interferes with your diet, and what you will find is that it makes any anxieties you have much worse. When people stop drinking, they find their anxiety levels drop right off. So how do you get good sleep? Exercise is really top of the list, mental health wise too. You need to find 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a couple of times a week, even better daily, to get the heart rate up, get a bit of a sweat going. That's going to make you eat better and sleep better as well. So that exercise is really critical. But you don't have to be a high achieving perfectionist exerciser who's better than everybody else in the gym or better than anyone else riding their bike. That can be a space for you to be happy and set more reasonable expectations for yourself. Be careful of devices, televisions, anything that emits a blue light before you go to bed at night. That will keep you awake. What else? If you're lying there worrying in bed about things and stressing about things, perhaps have a little pen and paper next to your bed, because then I start stressing about forgetting things because I'm half asleep thinking of these things. So if you write things down, that can make you feel a whole lot better. They're probably my best tips for getting a good night's sleep anyway.